So I'm here with Chris Cullen, who's our Scottish parliamentary candidate standing in Edinburgh. Sorry, can't remember the name of the constituency.
That's
I'm
okay.
Will Dry, author of Revolution in Parliament by Manifesto Press, a book that's just come out. Just to be brief about it, the main argument is basically that the revolutionary left absolutely should be going out and contesting elections and bringing class politics to a mass audience using the platform of elections and definitely not abstaining. It's the worst thing we can do. So I'm going to be talking to you, Chris, about putting this into practice. We're both candidates in these elections. I'm standing in Cambridge. I believe in putting my money where my mouth is. I'm regretting it now because I'm absolutely exhausted, but it's good work, and I'm sure you are too. So, yeah, I'd like to start by hearing about how it's going for you. Um, and someone who was a skeptic about contesting elections, a revolutionary, as a Marxist, who's gone on to be leading a very dynamic campaign by the looks of things, very active, getting a lot of traction. So, yeah, I'd like to start by hearing, how did that transformation come about? And don't just say it's because you read my book.
I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you, Will, because it's from reading your book that changed me around. I was picked as the parliamentary candidate for the Scottish election just before the Communist Party of Britain's National Congress last year. And I was kind of like, oh God, is this really what we're doing? But I'm a principled Marxist. I'm like, if that's what I'm being picked to do, that's absolutely fine. I'll do it. I was kind of the impression that if we're doing that, then we're not doing our other campaign work. Is it kind of a drain on resources? Is it kind of a drain on focus? But at Congress, I picked up a copy of your book and I gave it a read, specifically because I was going to be a candidate. And I thought, oh, well, yeah, this is really, really simple. It actually really outlines that if we don't contest these things, we're basically taking an entire arena of class warfare and we're giving it to the ruling class, being like, there you go. We're not even touching that one. And we're basically saying to ourselves and to the working class at large, we only will do stuff if it is something that we believe in, which is the antithesis of analysis. And we can analyze that we should be always where the working class are and where they're congregating and where they're speaking. And every 5 years or so that there's an election where people are actually actively thinking about politics. They're really genuinely looking at manifestos sometimes, but at least they're open to the conversations around politics. And if we just say, no, it's too infected with ruling class ideals or structures to even touch it, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. So from reading your book, how you pulled in so much of Lenin's writings, of Engels' writings, and the case studies through the 20th century, I was like, oh, well, yeah, let's do that. So for our actual campaign so far, we decided to do kind of what was instructed within the book of being active directly within our communities, something that we were doing before the election campaign started, but we started using it as a vehicle for pushing our existing campaigns harder. And it ended up being this thing where it lost the run of itself in a really positive way. So we ended up recruiting quite a lot and engaging people that were kind of disengaged with the party or indeed with the YCL, and getting them really energized around this. So we've also opened up quite a lot of our campaigns to the wider movements. We've had a bunch of people from out with the party or the league come and help us on stalls where we're offering housing advice, doing food bank collections, doing energy advice, and doing like solidarity walks for Cuba, raising money for solar panels and medical aid. All of these things that we're doing instead of just electioneering, but we're doing them with the flavor of, by the way, here's some class analysis. Here's why what we're doing shouldn't exist. Here's what a better life could look like for the people of Scotland. And it seems to be working really well. Yeah, we've just been having a great time with it. It's fun.
Yeah, I can see that, fun and exhausting. And yeah, me too. I've been having, obviously the stakes aren't quite as high with a city council election like I am contesting in Cambridge, but I I suspect we're having some similar conversations on the doorstep. And for me, that's sort of vindicating why we're there in the first place. Um, I don't know about you, but I'm getting a lot of like obviously, distrust and, dejection and anger looking for somewhere to go. That's always been there, but lately it seems to be hitting crisis points, and obviously that anger is being captured mostly by far right forces, you know, just exploiting that void in the electoral arena where class politics should be, but has been neglected for a very long time. I think there's a real hunger for class politics to be back on the table and not pushed aside for like I don't know more representation politics. That really needs to know concrete outcomes for working people. But yeah, the results are clear to see. I'm finding very few enthusiastic defenders of the existing political order when I'm talking to people. So I don't know how it might be different in the Scottish context because this is a parliamentary election. So what kind of conversations are you having with voters up there?
I think it's broadly similar, Will, but there are differences, and it's interesting. Um, as you've correctly pointed out, the far right are sweeping up because they're offering an extremely easily understandable but false narrative for what is wrong with our society. They're dressing in the aesthetics of a revolutionary party. They're dressing in the aesthetics of change, but what they want at their core is the status quo, but faster. They want privatization, but faster, more violent. They want the destruction of our hard-earned, hard-fought for hard fought for rights. They want that, but just faster and more violently. And because they're able to say, you can't get a house because of migrants, or your bills are high because of migrants, people are eating that up because it's really, really easy to understand. Whereas we're trying to speak to these exact same people and not saying you're racist, you're wrong, you're whatever. We're saying you're right to be angry. You're right to have this level of anger in regards to all of these issues because you are angry about your housing. You're angry about your bills. You're angry about fearing for your children's safety. All of these things are genuine, actual, real concerns for people in working class areas. And we've found that we've been able to turn people around, like even at far right rallies. We haven't been just like counter protesting all the time. What we've been doing as well is offering socially useful help slightly up the roads. So there was a quite large demonstration at Holyrood's, the Scottish Parliament, not too long ago, and we were slightly up the road offering housing advice to both the protesters and the counter protesters, because everyone deserves to live indoors and everyone needs this information democratized. But we had people with Uni Jacks tied around their necks and everything come up to us and then come away saying that they were voting communist. They were coming away saying, thank you, you've actually helped me. People have actually changed their tune in real time, within a couple of sentences, about how they felt in regards to migration, because we were actually engaging with them with class politics, not with moralistic pearl clutching, not with berating them for being stupid or for being propagandized or anything like that. We were like, yeah, mate, it's rough out here. No one can get a house and the bills are really high. You are correct. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's been really,
Yeah,
really useful.
you had a recent exchange you told me about where you was attacked because you yourself are an immigrant by a by a voter you engage with. I think you'd put something through their door and you got some angry messages, and but instead of many of us would have dismissed this person, walked away, but you sort of engage with that anger. Like, can you tell us more about how you sort of turn that around?
100%. So, like, we're getting the Royal Mail to deliver out loads of election addresses. So we have our leaflet going. And one of the points within our leaflet was that um, migrants are welcome, but exploitation is not. And it was talking about how the level of migration is an issue, but the individual people are not to blame. It's the systems, and the migrants are the products, not the problem. But I think he took a snap reaction to seeing migrants welcome, and he sent me a voice message on Facebook Messenger to my candidate page, and was quite irate. He was quite upset with it, and I just thought, like, well, yeah, I mean, like, he. I guess he was kind of in the same area as me. We're in Muirhouse. We're like Pennywell kind of area. It's the second most deprived area in Edinburgh. Stuff is falling to bits. Stuff is not in a great way, and like I've worked through like tenancy. I was a tenancy union organizer, and I've worked in homelessness services, and I really understand how bad the poverty is in that particular area. But instead of just saying to him, or well, firstly, instead of going to the police, because it was slightly threatening, but whatever, or being like, "Oh, I'm going to block this fella," you could recognize that this is someone who has genuine concerns and genuine problems here. So you're like, yeah, mate, it's fine. I'm your neighbor though, and don't worry. Like, I really understand where you're going to. And then because I had already put together something that was on the issue of immigration that went into a bit more nuance and a bit more of the whole specter of the whole spectrum of the conversation in regards to immigration. I was able to send that to him and say, look, if you can, just give it the benefit of the doubt, give it a go if you can, and have a listen to that. And just from meeting him with humanity and kindness, he very quickly turned around to be like, actually, mate, I can't be mad at someone who responded to me like that. And then he started actually genuinely engaging with what I was saying. And now he likes quite a lot of my videos that come up. And he's been sending me messages since being like, I actually really think you're doing a great job. Whereas it started with saying I need to go back to Ireland on the next P&O. He's now saying it's amazing that you're standing up for Scotland in this way. And that's not just from being nice. It's from engaging in class politics. It's from recognizing his genuine issues and being like, here you go. This is what it looks like. Do you know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be moralistic, because we find like we've been doing moralistic stuff for a while now and it's not really working.
Yeah, I think workers are fed up of being preached to be honest, and that moralizing just isn't winning them over. They care about concrete class issues that affect their day-to-day lives. And if you start there, I mean, you'll find underneath all that anger, discontent that's been misdirected by the right-wing media and like the far-right parties, and well, even the so-called progressive and moderate parties who are sort of piling in on this, for political opportunism. Once you get beneath all that, it's always a class issue, you know, um, that looking for a simple solution, a simple answer, and the far right have given them one, even though it's a wrong solution. But really, fundamentally, they just care about, safe, secure housing, work, dignity, just stability, really. That being said, I know it's not always easy for candidates to engage with anger like that, and I'd always say put your safety first. Like it's not always a good idea, but it just demonstrates that when we do engage with that anger on a class basis, it can be redirected away from these destructive, like right-wing narratives that are being peddled. Right, on that, I'm going to test you. So, I know you've read the book, but what do you say to people who, and I'm sure you've had it, I have too, say you should stand aside because you can't win here. You're just going to let reform in. You're just going to let some other like far right candidate in. Why are you standing? You're just going to split the left vote. What do you say to that?
There's so many things to say, but the first one is that split what left vote? Like realistically, we look at things. If you look at the rest of the parties in an economic sense, the furthest left genuine, like a big party you could say is the Greens, but mate, like they're not actually challenging class dynamics. They're all about the aesthetics of the left, but not about the actual, the class issues or the economic foundations. They're not they've never been an anti-capitalist party. Weren't they even an offshoot of the Tories originally? I mean, look, like split in what? Like again, we understand that representational democracy as it is a bit of a circus anyway. We know that Labour and the Tories and the Greens and even the Lib Dems or whoever, they're kind of aping reform because it's in vogue at the minute. So we see like Labour's policies at the minute in terms of like having an increase in the minimum salary thresholds for visas and stuff like that. They're doing remigration stuff themselves. It doesn't matter, to be honest. All of the other parties, it's just every single person you could vote for that isn't a communist or a socialist is just pressing the accelerator towards the destruction of society at a different rate. And it's all in that direction. So we need to be in there to challenge this. Because again, as is said in the book, if you're not there, then you can't point this out. You can't be a foil to this comedy act. You can't, if you're not there, there are no alternatives. And then people start looking like alternatives, you know?
I say to you, yeah, you can block the far right maybe this time, but that anger's not going to go anywhere. And you don't defeat the far right by blocking it from winning seats. That anger's still going to be there, and what's creating that anger is re-electing these same liberal politicians who push class politics aside to clear a path to power. They're all about their careers. All they will do is disappoint and fuel that fire. And all you're doing is delaying that reckoning. It's going to get more intense further down the line. So this is a trick as old as time. I mean, Phil Paratin was told to stand aside for the Labour incumbent in Stepney, but he said, "Oh, you can't win here. You're just you're going to let the Tories in." Well, good job he didn't follow that advice.
Exactly.
Otherwise, basically the Labour incumbent had no connection with the tenants associations, had told the community to ignore Mosley and the black shirts while they were marching through their neighborhood and intimidating Jewish people, and did nothing. But we can't go on. I mean, so this has been a trick they've pulled for decades, and we can't go on. They have to start earning our votes. We can't, just give it to them. I mean, it's a really bad argument, and we should stop falling for it. And if we split the vote and let reform in, let the far right in, whose fault is that? If they've become so indistinguishable from the thing that they claim to oppose, we've got to stop because it's just it's pushed class politics off the table in elections for decades, which is why many people on the left don't engage or don't think there's a case for engaging with elections, because we've allowed them to push class politics completely off the table. Well, we've got to put it back on the table, and the only way we do that is by standing in the first place. So we've got a lot to rebuild, but the best time to start, as they say, is tomorrow. No, well, I'll mess that up. Basically, the best time to start was yesterday. Second best time to start is today.
Well, I think the way of really summing up what you said there is that if you keep giving people the option of voting for the lesser evil, you're just basically saying to people, vote evil every single time. Keep voting evil, just slightly more palatable, or even just slightly more professionalized looking evil. There's corporate evil, and then there's clownish evil, and it's all evil. Apologies. It's all evil. Do you know what I mean? So we have to actually offer an alternative, even if it's not popular. I mean, look, we know that reform came out of nowhere with billions behind them. So they were able to take over media narratives. They were able to get in everyone's letterbox. They were able to be all over everything. We don't have that kind of money. And that's fine. We don't say that, well, can't contest it then. Better not do the class struggle. Better just lie down and take it. Better just like get smashed under the boot of capital. Nonsense talk.
Exactly. You don't go home because you don't win this time. This is a marathon, not a sprint. You know, we've got to be in it for the long run. We've got a lot to rebuild because we've been asleep at the wheel for so long. We've got to rebuild everything that was lost. Our own history shows us, you know, what we've achieved in the past, and it can certainly be done again. It's being done now across, I mean, the book cites like numerous political, like workers' parties, communist parties in power, in government, in positions of influence across the world. You know, and some of them start off like the Belgian Workers' Party getting 1% of the vote just 20 years ago, but they kept at it, and they put class politics front and center. You know, and you know the results speak for themselves. So yeah, I'd like to finish just by asking you, what would you say to those who are, you know, have walked away from the ballot? They've given up all hope of changing anything, you know, through elections. They think it's, politics is something that happens to other people. It's not for them. They're just staying out and hoping things get better, or just battening down the hatches. What do you say to people like that?
If we abandon all hope on any avenue or any potential fighting ground for class politics, we concede our own defeat. And it's, if you start it with this, if you do it for electoral politics, you'll also do it in trade unionism. You'll declare trade unionism a reformist thing to be doing that can't actually win the emancipation of the working class, so therefore you shouldn't concede. And you know what will happen then? Your wages will start getting depressed further and quicker, and your rights will get chucked out quicker. And then you start doing the same thing about like health and safety checks or anything. You stop fighting for your class if you start thinking that, oh, it's pointless. There's no point. Why would I even try? Why would I bother? This is your life, and it's your children's lives. So it's extremely important that we contest every single avenue of class warfare. It's essential because it is warfare, and it's happening whether you're engaged in it or not. So if you're not engaged in it, it's still happening. You're still losing. You can fight and maybe win, but if you don't fight, you'll always lose.
Yeah, a very wise person said that.
I think they said it better than me as well.
Bob Crow, wasn't it?
It was Bob Crow, yeah.
Bob Crow, yeah. Well, you're absolutely right. And it's a point I make again and again in the book. This isn't electoralism we're selling. We're not trying to vote in socialism. We're not deluded. You know, it's a front of a multifaceted struggle, but a vital one that we ignore at our peril. We've seen the results because we're living in the results now, where, socialism and class politics have been completely pushed off the agenda for so long. And this is where we're at. And that's why class politics has to be put back on the agenda. But it's only going to happen if we're there fighting for it and talking about it relentlessly. Like, people have an appetite for change. They want change. They just don't know what that change looks like yet, or they've stopped believing it's possible, or they even deserve it, because for too long, that choice has been denied to them. And that's exactly why we've got to be there in that fight, at the ballot box, on the street, in the workplaces, in our communities, campaigning all the time. And I know you, like me, after this, you'll probably have a well-deserved break for a bit, but we'll be back on it.
Yeah.
We're not just turning up at elections here. People see through that. I think people respect honesty and authenticity. We'll be back out fighting on another front the week after. That's the only way we do this. We're not going to pretend revolution's going to arrive by like some parliamentary arithmetic. But our task is to put class politics back into public life, like independently, confidently, on every front available to us. And that's the work we need to do. And I'm so glad I won you round. You're in
Well,
good company.
if you have listened to this and thinking, gosh, I think I might be able to be one around, Manifesto Press have this wonderful book called Revolution in Parliament by Will Dry that you could pick up. I look, it utterly convinced me, to be honest. And now from engaging in this campaign, it's just reaffirmed it further that like any kind of worries or qualms I had have been completely alleviated. Seriously, this is what the kind of work we should be doing, because it platforms and inflates the whole the it inflates the visibility of everything else that we're doing, and it gets people talking about it. I mean, like anecdotally, and I'm sorry, I know we're wrapping up, but I just want to say that in Edinburgh, it's very normal for people to talk about voting communist now. That's crazy. It's extremely normal. I've seen people in the street with a badge of my face on them. I don't know who they were. That's like I know, under no illusions, I do not think that I'm going to be getting a seat, but I believe that we have sown the seeds of people thinking about class politics, and this is the important thing.
That's exactly it. We're trying to win our class. We're not out to win seats. No, leave that to careerists. But no, the important fight is at the end of it, not to ask how many votes you got, but what did you build? And it looks like you're doing a lot of building up there. Well done to you.
You too. Thanks very much.